Your last name is Weed and you're on
Dude. My family traveled north of California earlier. We stopped at Weed, got her picture taken, I got a t-shirt, and people in Ojai said, oh, start over. Can we do it different?
Clock's not
I
ticking.
really don't have a long-winded statement today. I guess three things. First of all, I stopped at the first public meeting for the 711 committee, and I thank you for the service you were going to provide. I didn't do that just because you're not seeing the soap opera tonight. I did it because this meeting and the next meeting will test your abilities. So, again, congratulations for volunteering. My condolences for volunteering. Really well. Done a lot of experience about this particular topic, and I don't have students that have been in Summit. Both my kids have been in public schools for no license who moved here years ago. So it's just one of those little process needs that I have. It's a very challenging issue for people living up Ojai, and I find it somewhat not go that way. I just want to say that there is a certain group of people that live in Ojai, in Upper Ojai, that quite honestly have a great deal of passion for how that school is used. And whatever the outcome of your recommendation is, it will then forward to the full school board. And whatever their decision is, will be the decision. And so what I would just humbly suggest is that in your report, you not only offer whatever options you recommend, but to also make some sort of concise statement about the stakeholders in that area and indicate whatever you feel is appropriate to reach out to those people. A lot of those people have invested a lot of time and effort in the district as well as in Summit. And I'm not sure that there's a way that you can keep them engaged with the district, but you need to at least explore that and make that recommendation to the full school board. Okay.
Can you be a little bit more clear as to what you're stating there?
Sure.
I think you're dancing around what you really want to say. So
Well,
okay.
so look at the room.
Uh-huh.
And you people, well, some of you people at least live up in an area, and there's been information available in paper and online about the dissatisfaction of never possibly having a public school on that property again. And I know some of the people that are involved in that. And they've been very active, not only with the district, but also, of course, with the Summit area. So you need to find, can I finish my response?
Please.
Thanks. So there's a formal recommendation that your committee will make. And then there's the informal information that I think would be valuable to remind the school board of. Information such as, how do we keep these people engaged? Because they're losing a lot if the decision should be to never have that be a public school. Or after 5 years, you consider it, after however many years you decide that the lease should be, if that's how you proceed. So you just need to communicate the intangibles to them as well as your recommendations. That's my, thank you.
Thank you.
Before we move on, thank you, Mr. Reed. Before we move on to item number, the next public comment, we need to open a public hearing. This is amendment the order. Too early?
Right to the fire.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak tonight. I am a resident of Upper Ojai, and I moved to years ago. We bought our home up there 2 years ago. And I have my little one who's 3 and my littler one who's just a year and a half. And when we moved up there, we were really excited for the opportunity to live in such a beautiful setting and to have community up there, and the proximity of the public school was one of the draws to us. So for our family, it's really impacting us to not be able to have a neighborhood school in the future. So for me, that is a great loss, because I do believe in free public education, and Luna's already in preschool, so to drive to and from town is really impacting on my day-to-day. I'm home full-time with the girls, so I feel that I just wanted to come and share that perspective, and also knowing that we're new, relatively new to the area, but we're already thinking about the possibility of moving, because it is really challenging to be up there and having the scheduling and all of that business. So anyway, I just I know it's a really complicated and difficult decision, but this is my perspective as a parent, and that's okay. So thank you.
Thank you.
Miss Gloria, that's all right?
Yes. I'm Gloria, if I ever leave, I'm a retired high school teacher and administrator for the Ojai Unified School District. The powerful people in Ojai are trying to convince us that we should believe that a charter school at Summit would be a public school. I'm going to summarize what I said last time, which is a charter school takes public money, and that's why it can be called a public school, and that's the end of it. Traditional public schools have boards that are elected by the people. Charter schools do not. They have private boards.
I've been doing this for a long time.
So I wish that people would stop calling charter schools public school. The experience of public school systems is that charter schools take away students, and with them goes public school money. Ojai schools are already losing lots of students. The high school, I understand, used to have thousands of students, now they only have 700. Please do not contribute to continued decline in enrollment. Research shows that charter schools fail to serve students with the greatest needs. Roosevelt High School in Los Angeles used to have close to 6,000 students. With the effects of charter schools, their enrollment has dropped to barely over 1,000. And most of those students are special ed students. So charter schools disrupt communities, and they have a record of increasing racial segregation at traditional public schools. Please do not consider a charter school at Summit.
Thank you. Miss Thea Wilcox. Next.
Okay, fine.
Call them as they come up here.
Hello, my name is Thea Wilcox, and I'm a parent of 3 children and live in Upper Ojai. My 2 oldest were at Summit last year. I was the treasurer of the Summit PTO, which is now known as Condor Kids, a nonprofit that runs 2 after-school programs out of Summit School. I am also the president of the newly formed Summit Charter School Board. I have been an active participant in the Summit discussion since the beginning. and I have witnessed firsthand the negative effect closing the school had on my children. The school was closed due to low enrollment, yet nothing was done or no resources given to the volunteers to increase enrollment. Closing our schools and cutting resources does not serve to strengthen the public education in Ojai. Building, differentiating, and focusing on our strength is the path forward to better educate all of our students in Ojai. We have an opportunity to create something different at Summit School, an opportunity to innovate and create more choices within our public school system. When I last spoke to the 7-Eleven committee, I updated them on the fact that community members and parents are working together to create a charter petition to put in front of the school board. This is an enormous task that cannot be rushed, but that is what is happening. The school district is rushing to further monetize the property at our neighborhood school site instead of allowing us the opportunity to build what they could not. The district is already receiving money for the site. There is absolutely no reason to rush this process except to circumvent our efforts. This is our public space and our opinion matters, not just the people in our neighborhood, but the entire community at large. We need to take charge and make changes that we want to see in our public schools. We deserve the opportunity to rebuild our neighborhood school. It is not the 7-Eleven committee's job to decide if a public school will be successful, but to decide what uses of the site would be acceptable to the community. The community wants the opportunity to reopen Summit School. Please put a public school on the list of uses. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. And you were speaking, I was noticing you were speaking not on behalf of yourself, well, I guess obviously you were, but also says official spokesperson for.
Summit Charter School Board.
I just thought that was important that everyone did that.
Thank you, Trevor.
Next up, Mr. William Wyrick.
I'm speaking as an individual, not as a member of the Ojai City Council. I am a member of the City Council. I'm an elected official, and I come, the perspective I want to share it with you comes from a career as a university administrator, worked closely with public schools, and then now here in Ojai. And I think that what I wanted to express is a couple of things. The trend that I see in terms of my professional decades experience as an educator and an elected official, and going to a number of conferences having to do with the issue of multi-agency cooperation in terms of community assets, and in particular with declines in enrollment community assets that we otherwise would call school properties, is that I think that we, frankly, might want to recognize those two statements on the board there. The district mission statement and the district vision are perhaps something that needs to evolve and be updated, because school properties are community assets, and that's the trend. Not in fact, school districts are revising their mission statements and district vision to recognize that the school properties and school activity, school district properties as part of the educational experience are to recognize their assets as community assets, and that the educational experience is enhanced by recognizing and enhancing that. And this case in the Summit School makes that abundantly clear. You have a very motivated community. You have a community that feels like something has been taken out of its heart, and you have an opportunity for the school district to recognize that responsibility as a community asset, talk to other agencies, find ways at continuing this as a community asset, and not trying to just look at the short-term cash flow from perhaps liquidating the asset. So I think it's very important to look at as a shared use going forward, to continue it as a shared use vision, you reach out to other agencies that might be willing to help. There are professionals, there are grant programs that specialize in trying to facilitate the repurposing of schools that have to close into community assets. And I wish the school district would reach out a little bit more and talk about and look at how we can accomplish this for the good of the community and be community-based enhancement. And I want to leave you with one quick thought. I'll never forget the recently retired fire chief when we were talking about emergency resilience in our larger community, including Upper Ojai. So you know what? Sometimes we can't evacuate. We need to harden schools as refuge centers. And that Upper Summit School is the kind of thing that, again, to reach out in terms of looking at as a public asset, a community asset, including, broadly spoken, things like, you know, hardening as a refuge center when you can't evacuate, when the inevitable fires happen again. Educational services, shared asset going forward. That's what I implore you to look at. Thank you.
Thank you.
Love it. Thank you. Speaking of shared assets, Mr. Bailey.
Yeah, I love it. It's oh wait, so I can be heard. So my name is Jim Bailey. I am a community member of Upper Ojai and on Seasar Road. I'm speaking tonight as a director for Rock Tree Sky. And I love what Mr. Wyrick had to say. I don't believe we met before, but the number on my number one bullet point, the first words are shared use. And you know, and I just want to remind the committee that, you know, that our concept, you know, us being there as Rock Tree Sky, is our vision is part of a shared use with the larger community. And I think I've said that multiple times. I also, you know, want to be clear that collaboration with the charter, if more buildings and some red tape can be figured out, is not antithetical to our goals. So, you know, I feel that that is a potential shared use as well. So, you know, there's an opening to that. I think Summit, you know, currently with 5 rooms is, you know, is a little small, especially if you want to house a K-8 and an enrichment program for homeschoolers. I think there would have to be some additions going forward there. I wanted to let the committee know that you may tonight hear questions of our request for a lease or even a 5-year lease. And I just want to be clear, you know, that we are hoping to be able to do some development, some improvement of that site that has been, you know, not been able to be maintained in the way that folks in Upper Ojai have, you know, hoped it would be for a long time. And we like to spend some sweat equity and some gold to do that. But if so, we need to make sure that there's going to be a guarantee, some level of guarantee for our continued use. And so the request that we just accept what we currently have, I feel is not honorable, because we could be kicked out in a 24-hour notice. And that is not a situation I want to hold for the families that I serve in that community. And the last thing, I just want to say that, you know, it's Teacher Appreciation Week, and I look around the room, and there's a lot of people who really care about kids, and I want to thank them for their efforts in all the ways that they've done, and that this is what a community does. So here we go, and we're trying to do the best we can, and thank everybody for your service. So that's it.
Hey Jim, I saw you weed whacking.
I was weed whacking on Saturday in shorts. That was a mistake.
I know, I saw that.
I just had to get it done.
Thanks, Mr. Bailey.
Thank you, Jeff. And thank you all for your work.
Next up, Paul, is it Will? Royal?
Yeah.
Hello.
First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for attending tonight and the people on the board for volunteering. It's much appreciated. My wife and I have lived in Upper Ojai for 30 years. And when we moved up there and our kids graduated from school and we got married and we started having grandkids, they were living in South Hall, and we have 6 grandkids living down there. And we just were sold out on them moving to Upper Ojai and our grandkids attending Summit. Because small neighborhood school, great education, And so we had 6 grandkids go through Summit School. Got a great education. We've got 3 in universities right now and 3 more at Northern. So we have a very strong vested interest in Summit School. I'm a almost 40 years public educator. I would disagree with my learned colleague talking about actually downing charter schools earlier, because one of our founding principles in this nation is the idea of liberty, and liberty means choice. And if you don't give people choice, you're depriving them of that liberty. I think it's important we have that choice, whether it be a private school, Villanova, Thatcher, Ojai Unified, or charter school. As far as discrimination, I want him to address that and give it any kind of credence. But there was a story years ago. I read this as a high school kid. I used to read biographies. How did people become great? And I read one in high school on a guy called Newt Rockne, and he was a coach at Notre Dame back in the 20s and 30s. Probably one of the greatest football coaches ever. And one of the major car companies, I think it might have been Chrysler, was losing money, so they invited him to come into their corporation during the summer. They said, Newt, how do we make this successful? And so he had them up, these 12 executives, up in this high-level penthouse overlooking the Chrysler plant in the parking lot. And he said, I want to know how many of you executives drive Chryslers. And 3 slowly put their hands up. And he said, you 9, go to the parking lot and come back at a later time. And he kicked them out of there. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is, I want you tonight to pretend that you are those 3 executives that are left behind. You have the vested interest in Upper Ojai. Now, I'm not going to have you, I thought about earlier maybe have you raise your hands. How many live in Upper Ojai, and how many kids do you have in Ojai Unified? But I might be embarrassing, so I'm not going to do that. But I want you to put yourself in the place of an Upper Ojai resident. I know that Jim, I know you are, and Jessica, you are. So you're an Upper Ojai resident, and you have kids in 1st through 6th. Would you want a choice of a neighborhood school? And I think historically it's something we just expect and we want as American taxpayers. So I'm asking you tonight, finish my thought. Number 1, to give the school board on your priority list. One of the things on there is have Summit on there as a charter school, and not go with a 5-year and lock anybody in. Jim, I appreciate what you said, but I think we go year to year with a license to evaluate the leasing, and that gives us the opportunity to open as a charter in 2020. Thank you.
Thank you. I fit your criteria, by the way.
Are you staying, or are you out of the meeting?
I'm here.
Okay, good now.
I live in Upper Ojai, and I have 3 small kids that are
In public school?
In public school.
Okay, good.
They're not in Upper Ojai. There is no public school in Upper Ojai.
That's our
Maybe
point.
there will
I
be one.
understand.
So, Mr. Royal, your addition you wanted to have, can you tell me one more time, what did you want added?
I want as your choices on your priority use list, you haven't listed Summit as a charter school choice. So at least give the board that option. Right now, you're taking it off the table. And number 2, a year to year, so we can evaluate the current leasing and give us the opportunity to share that site. We don't want to, because I hear nothing but good things about what you're doing there, Jim. I don't want to see you go, but I think we can share it and we can do it economically.
Now, that differs from what she said, you said public school, is that correct?
Yes, charter schools are public schools.
Yeah.
Okay,
Please
so,
add public school to the list.
so are you
Charter
want
public
both, or
What's that?
do you want both being said added to the list?
To me, that's the same thing. A
Yeah.
charter school is a public school. So it is the same thing.
Summit
You say
charter
public
school,
If you say public school, finish your thought.
Public school and charter schools are the same thing. It just depends on who controls the school. Local control is what we're looking for.
I have a question for both of you.
Mhm.
So I think, and I'm going to speak on behalf of us, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that part of our concern and why it was stricken from the list at our last meeting was we were told that the district wouldn't support that. So what would happen if you didn't have the buy-in from OUSD? Then what happens? So, I mean, you know, I think your idea is
The
great,
process.
but
or
what
how-
happens if we do say, hey, Jim, we're gonna go year to year, give these guys a chance, you guys get all your ducks in a row, you get shot down by the district, then what happens?
Then we can also appeal to the county. And the county is very interested in serving underserved populations. As you know, our school's geographical site, we have this really special opportunity, not just to serve Ojai, but also to serve Santa Paula students. And I feel strongly the county would also support that, so we don't just have one avenue for success.
Have you talked to the county?
Yes.
You have?
Yes.
This is all being
But
recorded,
I-
so I think, hold on, yeah.
Sure.
If we're gonna do a question and answer, which I'm not opposed to, I think it's great, you just gotta go to the microphone, so
Yes.
it makes us way better.
So the process is that you do need to go to your local school district first. If they were not agreeable, then you can appeal to the county. I do feel like the school district would be open to supporting a charter if we had a good, strong program that was financially viable with enough students. The biggest concern I've gotten from school board members when I'm meeting with them one-on-one is the feeling that they don't think the students are there.
I mean, the
I have to-
administration told us last meeting that they would not support it. So that's where we're coming from, is we've been
The
told.
district administration or the school board? Because the school board is who votes on it, not the district. So the superintendent does not vote on whether the charter is authorized, the school board does. And we are also getting a new superintendent, so that plays a role.
But I think the question that we asked him is did the school board have any input in that? And that's what my question
Well,
was.
that's interesting. And also, I think we also have a procedural issue because.
I just, since I'm being quoted on it, what I said last meeting, if I misstated my intention, I apologize. I didn't say that myself or the board would not support it. I said the board has not yet weighed in, but I said the administration have grave concerns about it. So we have concerns both about its efficacy for an educational program to meet its goals, as well as real concerns about its impact to the district. But I don't want to be quoted again if I said it, but I apologize for saying something as strong as either the board or I don't support it. We have very strong concerns about it.
But your major concern was the number of students. What, I mean, if they had it, was that your main concern? I mean.
My main concern is about the ability for a K-8 to adequately meet its educational goals in that environment.
And it takes a number of students to do
It
that.
takes a number of factors.
Okay, that makes it clear.
And then procedurally, sorry. You know, procedurally, since we are being asked to put something on the priority use list that is not on there, I thought we developed that list last meeting, or maybe 2 meetings ago. It was put out to the public.
Mhm.
Isn't that, there's some statutory procedure that we have to follow to do this in order for it
So
to make its way
you
through the
absolutely
list?
are within your discretion tonight to modify the list. That's
Okay,
the
great.
purpose. It was a tentative list that you put out to the public. The purpose of tonight's public hearing is to allow the public to engage with that list, and you can make changes to the list tonight without requiring a subsequent public hearing.
Super, thanks.
So, what I had asked you the last time was, sorry, if the OUSD board had any plans to reopen Summit?
No
You
plans.
said no.
Correct.
And do they have any plans to open a charter?
No.
And you're gonna be able to have this ready for a potential start date of 2020?
Yes.
So that's where the 1-year lease to
Yes.
Rocktree, okay.
I just would like the opportunity, and I would like the list to accurately reflect what the community is saying they would like to be on the list.
Yeah.
We're not asking for things to be
Before I start for
removed.
my seat, is there any other questions for me?
Clarify, thank you.
Okay.
One more thing.
Can you identify yourself? I don't know who you are.
I'm superintendent of schools.
Oh, okay, all right. Good to know that.
Let's keep going down the public comments so we can get through these and then we can start chatting. Carla Durante Edwards.
fellow neighbors in Ojai. I stand before you as a transplant from Santa Paula that joined the Ojai community specifically because my child went to the Summit School. At the same time my son started at Summit School, there were 4 other kids from Santa Paula that went to Summit School. Sorry. And all of them are now in the Ojai district. So my interest before you is not because I have long-term ties to Ojai as a community. I moved to Santa Paula from Miami Beach. How far removed can you be from Ojai? But my point is, I look at it from an economic standpoint. My interest is in seeing Ojai and the Ojai School District as being economically viable. The more vibrant our school district is, the more vibrant the community. We've all talked about declining enrollment and lack of affordability for new families to move in. The reality is, I think our answer is on the other side of the road. In Santa Paula, and I used to be on the Economic Development Committee for the city of Santa Paula, there are 1,500 homes under development in Santa Paula on the 150 and the 126. The sales models are already open, they're already selling houses. They're affordably priced. The beginning layer is at $450,000. 36 new homes are going in on the 150 itself. Here's the story. There's 36 houses that are being currently built on the 150 are 1 to 2 blocks from Mupu Elementary School in Santa Paula. Sorry, get all excited about these things. Mupu Elementary School is currently completely full. It's past capacity, and they have a wait list for every grade. I spoke to them today and I said, what if I want to put a kid in 3rd grade? They said, well, we have a wait list already for every grade. And not only that, but since 1st grade and 2nd grade are already at capacities, they're looking at a situation where their classrooms will be burgeoning past the capacity to accommodate those who are already there. Thank you very much. Sorry. I'm fine. Thank you, though. But so my point being that 36 new families are going to layer on top of that excess capacity already. Where are those 36 families? The houses that are being built right now, 2 blocks away from the school, where are they going to go to school? Every school in Santa Paula is at capacity. So I think if I were in the shoes of yourselves, you have a lot of different constituencies and interests here, and people are speaking from their hearts. Your hard job is you have to balance heart to dollars, right? The only opportunity that I see from an economic development perspective for the district to get more money in is to take advantage of the geographic value of Ojai. Keep a public school open, whether you want to call it public or a charter, and let those excess capacity come to Ojai. There's no new capacity in Santa Paula. That's your only chance to have more financial wherewithal for the district. Does anyone have any questions? Thank you. Don't sell us short with private interest versus public interest. Thank you.
Mr. Gilman, Andy Gilman.
2 points. The first is I helped start Ventura Charter School 13 years ago. It's been going for about 12 years now. And we appealed to the county, which they denied us, and then we went, the district rather. And we went to the county and they approved it. And it was a huge mission. It was like a 2-year part-time job that none of us got paid for. But we had this thriving school that continues to exist. And what I would say is that what I wish is that the district would have seen that this could have been a jewel sort of in the town of offerings, but they didn't see it that way. They saw it as a kind of an economic threat. But the county did not see it that way. And so I'm with the prior speaker to say choice seems to be the key in education in many kinds of offerings. The second point I want to make though is that I hope some of you have attended any of our Ojai Chautauqua panels where we try to take complicated issues and get everybody on the stage. And in November 2017, we did tourism in the Ojai Valley. And Andy provided me with a couple of statistics. And one was from 2000 to now, the school-age population has just completely took a nosedive. And I remember, was it 4 years ago, we were talking about closing Miners Oaks? Mayor sorry.
Mine.
Yeah, Mayor Montoya. And so, it seems to me, what I would love to see, there are so many initiatives right now with Carnegie Mellon, all the nonprofits, ourselves, about becoming a sustainable, vibrant community and having a vision for what does Ojai look like, let's say, in 2050. And part of that vision has to be that we have a thriving school system and we have families that can move here and afford to live here. So what I would look to see is that the school board partners with the city, partners with the county to say, we are focusing on creating a school that is so attractive, so interesting, that people move here for that school, for that public school. And that, again, I would love to work with the city on this, and that there are managerial jobs that people can afford to live here. That's not just more tourism. And that seems to me it takes the school board, the Chamber of Commerce, the city, every nonprofit in the same room focused on what's this vision going to be. So that's what I would encourage you guys to do, is to think, what does Ojai look like in 2050? Is it that there is a school that's so attractive and interesting that people move here? Or is it, an asset that we sell or whatever? And this has nothing to do with Rock Tree Sky. It might be that it works perfectly with that. It's more like, it's got to attach to this larger vision. That's what I want to talk about. Thank you.
Hey, Kimberly Rivers.
So following Andy, I think that, so I would say that what he's suggesting requires that the asks that you've heard be added to the list in order to give the community, those of us working on the charter, and to collaborate. And we're actually planning to sit down with Jim Bailey soon and talk about what that could look like, that shared use and partnership and collaboration. And so, for the record, my name is Kimberly Rivers. I live in the city of Ojai. My son started attending Summit School when we lived in Piru. I was Summit PTO president for 2 years. My son's now at Matilaha and plan for him to attend Nordoff. You all know that Summit School has been a free, full-week public school for about 108 years, and that it was closed after the Thomas Fire, when that community was hit hard and people had to leave because they lost their housing or the air was bad for their kids. Again, that school's been the heart of the Upper Ojai for generations. I'm asking for 2 items to be added to the list. You don't need to take anything off the list. A free public school and a 1-year extension for the existing licensee at the site. Why a free public school? I really believe that full disclosure of interests and bias is really important. So I'm on the all-volunteer board for the nonprofit Grassroots Forum Summit Charter School for enrollment in fall 2020. I have no financial interest in this process, and my son will be too old to attend the charter by the time it's opened. My interest or bias is in building an amazing district for the families of the entire community, and what Andy's talking about is a valley-wide discussion going on many levels, and the public schools are a really important part of that. Something to keep in mind, and some of us who don't know all the details about how charters work don't understand, is that a charter school, the way that we are proposing it, would contribute to the district in many ways. One way is we'd have to pay to lease the site also from the school district. So it's not a choice between money and no money, just keep that in mind. And it's really important too to know that Jim's program up there draws folks from Los Angeles. And when I saw that, I said, absolutely, I came from Piru. Don't underestimate the power of an amazing dynamic program to draw people into this district. It's an incredible opportunity. And we need the 1-year license to do that work. And the district board, when they voted to temporarily close Summit, that was through the spring of 2020 to give interested parties a chance to build enrollment. So that's in the minutes and in the board agenda for when the district voted to do that. And I understand that some of you may not get it, why it's so important, and that's okay. you haven't had a chance to imagine the potential, that's okay. We have, so just put it on the list. Thanks so much.
Mary Ann, back. We have one more public comment, so if you're here and you want to speak, get your,
I'm here talking to you guys again, because I love Upper Ojai. And I have had the most wonderful experience in the Ojai schools. And I know from being the secretary of Summit for 8 years and being the PTO president at Matilla, and in my previous work in several other committees in the Ojai Education Foundation, how much money Summit School has brought to the entire district. And it's a little counterintuitive, but I have the facts, and you should know what they are. I object to the fact that it's being portrayed that the school district does not support Summit School reopening as a public school, because it does. I've been to all of those school board meetings. They have said, we're not sure we can do it. We want to see the numbers. We want to give you guys a chance. The school is temporarily closed, and we are here working so hard to let the administration realize the potential that the former superintendent realized when he said on the front page of the Ojai Valley News that Summit School was the only school in the entire Ojai Unified School District that had the opportunity to bring in a lot of money to the school district. I'm not going to quibble over the amounts, but it's in the tens of thousands of dollars. It's also the hundreds of thousands of dollars that the school district lost the day that it closed Summit School, and 14 students verified fled from Ojai Unified School District, not from Summit School, from the entire district. I just want to say that Rock Tree Sky is an amazing program, and Jim knows how much I admire his work. And that program can flourish anywhere. And you know what? They're going to close San Antonio School District, San Antonio School next, and that'll be a perfect place for you to go. And there's also a lease option right now for Chaparral. That would be perfect. We'd love to share, because there's such amazing synergies, which we've talked about. And the word is share. I think that's really key. So I took a breath when you said shared use, because you said specifically at this meeting that you did want to share, and we do, because you have so much to offer this entire district. And Summit does not, Upper Ojai does not have to be worrying over Rock Tree Sky or Summit. There can be a wonderful, wonderful opportunity for all of us to come together. So please remember, Rock Tree Sky can move, Upper Ojai cannot move. And remember that we are here because we have a program that we know that will work and will draw families. And we cannot be taking our little kids down the hill. I would not have been able to raise my children in Upper Ojai. I would have been like Jessica Mendiola, thinking about moving, because my life would not have worked to live in Upper Ojai and have my children. We want to build our community, because our community burned. I'm in a construction zone all around me. Houses are coming up all around me, and it's a very exciting time in Upper Ojai. And we are rebuilding our schools, and as a start for that. And thank you so much for listening.
One more. Ziegler, Melissa? How do you pronounce your last name?
Ziegler.
Ziegler.
My name is Melissa Ziegler, and I've never done this before. I lived in Upper Ojai for 10 years. When I first moved here, we saw there was a school nearby, and that was mostly what brought us here, was there was school close by for our family. We thought it would be good. I currently have a middle school age child who attends private school out of the area. I feel the property in question, Summit School, should have a 1-year license to Rock Tree Sky and then be made into a K-8 charter school. We need a school in our area, not just for property value, but for our community to continue to prosper and grow all of the other schools in the area. All the other schools in the other area are overfull, with more residents moving in nearby, barely just 5 minutes away.
and 2 new residential communities 20 minutes away. Our area needs a school, a charter school, will help educate children in public school that which public schools cannot do. Charters do not take away from public schools. They enrich and grow them. Please add charter school to this.
We gotta,
Yeah, it's all right.
bring that up.
I'm late.
It's not late, you're not bringing it up.
It's
We have plenty of
for
time.
this, Perfect. I just, I've got 3 minutes, right? Hopefully I can do this in 60 seconds.
Please state your name.
My name is Ira Heilbelt, Heilbelt. Just a resident of Upper Ojai for over 25 years. I have 2 kids who went to Summit School. I just want to address, I think, the fundamental difference. Choice was talked about here. The fundamental difference between a private school and a public school is, in fact, choice. Private schools have the ability to accept or discharge anyone they want. Public schools do not. They're required by law to take everyone that comes along. By not including a public school option, you're essentially limiting choice. I think discrimination is an important topic here because private schools are legally allowed to discriminate. They simply cannot take children who they don't want to take. I work with children with special needs, and in the special needs community, private schools are problematic because they simply won't take those. The only place they can go to are in public schools. So, from my point of view, I think having a public school option is a crucial necessity for the purpose of justice. And that's pretty much all it is. Thank you.
That puts it like at a 2-year window for not only a new memorandum of understanding to go into place, but for construction to start. You know, you can't build a school if the memorandum isn't viable. So I think that the district has a time window of opportunity that's incredibly strategic. There's no other opportunity to have an influx of new students and money into the district, save that geographic location.
And do you know about the homes on 150 at the Proctor
Yeah.
Ranch?
Those are with the Williams Development Group, and those are 36 homes that are going right near the Proctor House. Those are currently under construction right now.
So you don't know the rough completion date?
Well, they're saying that the completion date for the 36 will be in the calendar year of the academic year, fall 19 into the spring of 2020. And that information comes from people at the Miku School District that I talked to today. Just out of curiosity, because the Williams development was actually approved and authorized almost 2 full years before the Harvest development, which is on the 126. So if I were a person looking to move to Santa Paula, I think Santa Paula would have a tremendous interest in working in partnership. I know it doesn't work in the real world like this, but in a blue sky, where are they going to put those families? And if I'm a family looking to move into one of those new homes, would I actually invest in a home if there's no school capacity? So they need to address that. And their easiest fruit on that in terms of getting those homes filled is to work in partnership with an Ojai public school on their board. So I think, as someone mentioned before, there are many, many resources out there. Grants were mentioned and partnerships with rural and agricultural school development. There's an opportunity to partner with the city of Santa Paula because their needs aren't met. And how are they going to sell those homes without schools? So that's my suggestion to you. I worked corporate before, as some of you can tell because I gesticulate a lot, but sometimes when you're looking at budget issues, people tend to say, let's cut costs and let's encroach. But just look a little bit further and add those numbers into your analysis. Don't only look at Ojai numbers, because those numbers are sitting right across the border. You have to look at that picture and then make a dollar-based decision. That's my 2 cents. Long answer.
Could I dovetail into what you were saying regarding that?
Sure.
Yeah.
But you need to step up to the microphone.
Certainly. Yeah, Paul Royal again. I know that Santa Paula High is pretty well maxed out. The students from Santa Paula, which is where my grandkids came up from, if you don't get them because they're in Summit, a lot of those kids, even today, go on to Matilaha and they go on to Nordhoff, even though they live in Santa Paula. So you're gonna, like she was saying, you're gonna recoup some ADA from that Santa Paula development, and it could be quite substantial. Thank you.
You had a question?
Yes, I did. Dr. Campbell, could you come up? I'm looking at a lot of public faces that you can't see because I do. And would you correct me so it doesn't seem like I'm drilling you?
Sure.
Magnet, public, charter are all actually public taxpayer expenses.
Taxpayer funded,
correct?
that's correct.
So the taxpayers are for each one of those.
Correct.
So when we start saying public, charter, and this and that, it's taxpayer money.
That's right.
Rather than compartmentalized money.
So, magnet schools typically are a subset of actually district-run schools. Charters can be, but more often are not. All three of those schools, though, are going to be funded through the state general fund. So yes, they all are coming through sales revenue, property tax, and income taxes.
And the unified school district can charge the charters up to 2% above cost. Is that correct, or did that get changed last week? I know there may be some changes right now about.
Give me a little more to your question, because right now I actually don't know.
In-district charter and out-of-district charter. The school district, which the charter school would be in a district. Charter schools have to be in some school districts. There are no.
They can be authorized at county or state level.
Okay. And that authorizing agency then has the ability to charge fees that district can charge into the charter schools, correct?
Yeah, so there's two separate ways in which fees are typically collected. An administrative fee, which I believe you're right, 2% cap. A separate one is if the charter agency needs support for, say, human resources or payroll processing, those sorts of areas where a district or a county or a state agency can collect further fees through assessment of, entering into MOU for providing those services.
All right, thank you. I just wanted everybody to know that regardless of what we're gonna call this thing, it is taxpayer money.
That's right. It is
That is
taxpayer
being
money.
divided up. It's not a different source of money. It's our money, our sales tax, our gas tax, our property tax.
I don't believe gas tax would be going into it, but you're right, it's taxpayer dollars.
Okay.
Has the school district or the board have conducted any studies or had any discussions about opening the summer school in lieu of some of these potential Santa Paula soon-to-be residents or even the Nuku overflow? Has that ever been studied or looked into?
So, well, there's a number of thoughts there. One, I think that the board is yet to engage in a philosophical discussion that needs to happen at some point. The extent to which public, again, taxpayer-supported entities should be trying to take kids from one another, from other entities. I mean, is it our responsibility to educate the kids who reside within our boundaries, or our responsibility to try to take kids who are Santa Paula kids and pull them in? That's again, philosophical discussion. Obviously, our goal is to maximize our enrollment as far as it assists us in providing those key services to the kids who we have a fiduciary responsibility to. Summit has been open for many years. I know that the Summit community would feel that the district did very little to support those efforts in reaching into Santa Paula. That debate is not for tonight, but for this current school year, even with efforts by incredible parent volunteers at that site, they were anticipated to have 19 students. That includes Santa Paula kids.
I'm sorry, Andy, can you just clarify that there was never any opportunity to increase enrollment? It was never like a month given to increase enrollment. That was the enrollment, and we went from there. There was never any action taken or anything. There was never any opportunity even given to the parents to increase the enrollment before the decision was made.
So
Summit community was notified May 10th.
Correct.
The board's action was June 6th.
Yeah, that's an opportunity.
But that was also for this year. As far as the historical precedent, as Marianne also mentioned, for the past, at least 7 years from when that quote in 2011-12 school year, and some would say for many years before that, there have been numerous conversations, numerous efforts from, again, incredibly committed parent volunteers, faculty, administration at that site, going down to St. Paula and doing all they could to encourage inter-district enrollment into Summit. Those efforts never yielded a sustainable enrollment.
Excuse me, but did the school district ever give Summit any opportunity to improve the program? Other than, they went down from 3 teachers to 2 teachers, and I don't think that they ever came up with something that was viable for the community to do. I mean, I don't know that the school district did to help the school expand their enrollment, whether it's out of the area or not out of the area. People in Upper Ojai, some of them choose to send their kids to Topa Topa. I mean, for what reason? I don't know.
Yeah, I can answer that if you let me answer it.
I would love to.
Wait, hold on. Let's not, we have to have some regularity and some structure to this meeting, and I'm afraid that if we start getting in a back and forth, we're not gonna get out of here in time. So if we could just have questions directed to the speaker, and then those people who do have questions or comments, we're here to hear them. I know that people have raised their hands. We will get to you, I promise. But I don't want to engage in a back and forth. So you had a question for the speaker.
Just for clarity, everybody in the school district is currently encumbered by 2 school bonds. By the prior bond where we did the original $15 million.
You're saying that the residents of Ojai,
of the school district.
of our boundaries? That's correct.
Of the boundary.
That's right.
So they have the prior $15 million and then the current $30 million.
35, that's right.
And so that is even gonna be those people that live in the upper area that used to be Summit.
Right,
They're
and
still
so-
bound by those bonds, even though
and-
there's not a school, they're still bound by those bonds.
Well, I would strongly disagree if there's no school. San Antonio would be the school within, and Matilla, Nordoff, and obviously they have the ability to select any of the elementary schools. So they certainly are still the beneficiary of Ojai Unified Schools, but yes, there was not.
They have access throughout the district.
That's right.
And so I have a question. Are you aware of any representative of any nonprofit entity that has shown interest to the board to purchase that particular site and use it as a community resource center?
Oh, no.
Okay.
The extent to which Mr. Bailey engaged in that conversation last meeting is the extent to which I've heard a nonprofit engage in a conversation with ownership today.
Are there any representatives here from a nonprofit that are here to use that, to purchase the land for a community resource center?
Yeah.
Question for Andy.
Do you want to answer audience? I think that's it for the board.
Your call, but typically we just give a committee that asks questions of panels.
Why don't you, the audience ask the committee questions? I think that's probably the easiest way to do it, so it's not an attack anyone.
No, I don't mind being attacked, I just don't know if that's the protocol you want to.
Okay, hold on 1 second before we move on. I forgot your name, I'm sorry.
Andy.
I'm sorry?
Andy.
Andy, thank you.
Very fast.
3 points. Yes.
Number 1, just so you are completely clear, charter schools do not get to not take anybody who comes that applies either within the district or if they're a magnet school, just so you're clear on that. Unlike a private school, I was the admissions director for Oak Grove School. And it's true as somebody said, private schools can take or reject anybody they want. Charter schools cannot do that. But what typically happens is that, at least around here, charter schools are so successful and people are so interested that they have a lottery. And so there is a lottery system, and that would be a great problem to have if there was a charter school here that people wanted to move here so much. Secondly, Ventura Charter's case, they engaged with the county to do all of their back-end services. So the county benefits from the accounting, the legal management, all that kind of stuff. And I want to encourage to say, yes, it comes from ADA, average daily attendance, but what a charter school gets to do is have its board that is elected by the people of that school to manage itself. So it's not that there's a willy-nilly board, it's that it's truly local control. So that makes me think the school can actually adhere to its mission in a much clearer way. And then finally, I just want you to have this vision. We have this amazing valley, and we have permaculture, and we have sustainability, and we have farming. Imagine if you had a school, imagine if right out front here, in front of OUSD, there was a bioswale and permaculture, and you had tourists coming here to learn about how Ojai became the sustainable valley in the face of climate change. And then here's the school at Summit or whatever that teaches that as part of the curriculum. That's the vision that I want you to have, that I would hope you would carry to OUSD. Thanks.
Mr. Wyrick, are you leaving? I wanted to ask you a question. I saw you got up, but I want to.
I'm gonna leave soon, yes.
I know. But before you leave, I wanted to ask you, because you didn't specifically address it, at least I didn't hear it. Okay. As a city council member, you, and I guess I'm asking you this as an individual and a city council member.
Okay.
When you speak of a community asset, shared use, things like that, what do you envision?
Pretty much everything everyone's been talking about.
But how do you combine all of those? That's what I'm.
Well, there are many instruments for doing that I have been exposed to in terms of going to conferences and talking to people that specialize in this kind of thing. Everything from joint leases to joint powers agreements to specific purpose leases. So, I mean, there's all kinds of instruments for doing that. I'm not sure I'm answering your question, but there's really no one answer. The main thing is a willingness to come together and to focus on public assets for the public good, broadly stated. And there's various instruments for doing that. I hope I know I'm not answering your question directly, but I think we sometimes get too limited in our thinking about just the mission of our individual agency activities. And, and I think that's unfortunately gets away from the public good. I mean, if the city's just sitting there on, how do we get tax income? So, tax revenues for, to pay our employees, that's not the purpose of the city. The purpose of the city is to serve the community. And so I think it's very interesting to think about reaching out to other agencies, including outside of the jurisdiction, and not thinking of just the jurisdiction. I thought it was really interesting and very true about this enormous housing supply coming into Santa Paula. And I am in communication with the council people of Santa Paula, and they very much think of ourselves as having similar, almost sister city sensibilities. I mean, we're trying to enhance that feeling of working together because we are two small cities relatively, in geographic, contiguous relationship to one another. So
Okay.
I'm sorry I can't answer your question directly.
Let me ask you a follow-up. Can you point the committee to any local governmental agencies who have surplus a community resources, that's really what this is, and repurposed it, as you said, or done a combined or shared use, or any other, like, for example, the city of Palmdale did this with a surplus school, or something like that, but we can look
I
at
can certainly forward examples in other jurisdictions to you, yes. I don't have it off the top of my head, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm not in this jurisdiction, but I know there are other jurisdictions around the
Just
state.
models that we could look at.
I certainly would be happy to share those with you, yes.
All right. Okay, let's address the questions.
The gentleman who just spoke referred to charter schools being so good that that's why they have lotteries. Statistics are that something like 85% of charter schools perform academically equal to traditional public schools or worse. Also, he spoke about anybody can go to a charter school and not be discriminated against. When I was in charge of student discipline, we were getting discipline children who made poor decisions, getting thrown out of charter schools, coming back to my traditional public school because the charter schools didn't want them there. And even though he was trying to make charter schools sound perfectly equal, research, and I am not a liar, like this gentleman suggested, I'm presenting research.
I never used that word.
No, you spoke about some other fancy word, credence. But I'm citing research here, and among the names who did this research is Stanford, and they have a bit of credence. And so now the charter schools have existed for a long time. The result of charter schools existing is that they fail to serve students with the greatest needs. And those were the students that were thrown out of the egalitarian charter schools back into my traditional public school. And that's why I was using Roosevelt, but that's across the board. Most of the students left in public schools turn out to be special ed students. And when I said that schools across the country are more racially segregated now, that's based on research. I didn't just pull that figure out of the air. And some of you are speaking of the schools in Santa Paula attending this little charter school in Summit that you visualize existing. Well, if they're 20 minutes away, it seems to me that it's a little problem there. You're defending community and community school, and there are, superintendent pointed out that there are schools for the community and Summit to attend, and they're probably not farther away than the 20 minutes that the Santa Paula people would have to travel.
Ms. Valdez, before you sit
Sir.
down, I want to make a point that we are all very passionate about the Summit School, obviously. And I don't think it's going to be productive for the purposes of this meeting to start a back and forth with people. And nobody, I think, was calling you a liar. I didn't hear Mr. Royal say that. I think he's passionate about an issue. You're passionate about an issue. I know Marianne, I know Jim is. I know a lot of people here are. I mean, heck, we've been to these meetings. This is our 4th or 5th meeting. And so I'm hoping that we can all come together and find a solution for this place and not tear each other down over this issue. That's not what we're here to do. So when we leave here tonight, hopefully we can all have a good taste in our mouth and say, you know what, that was a very productive meeting, not, I don't ever want to go back there again, because that's not productive. I mean, we all know this is a big issue. This is a public resource. We want to do what's best for the community. And so thank you very much for speaking, and hoping all the subsequent speakers can kind of keep that in mind as we're talking and really kind of jointly coming up with a solution.
Do we have another speaker?
I don't think we do.
Yeah.
We have one.
It's right there.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thank you.
A couple more. A couple more. Stacy, is it Ruppel?
Ruppel.
Hi.
Hi.
This is my first time here, so it's really great to be here and to just learn about what is going on in the Ojai School District. I'm an Ojai resident. I've lived here for 8 years. I have a 5-year-old daughter who's currently at a Montessori preschool. And I have a 15-year-old stepdaughter who's at North Ojai. She's gone through the public school system for her whole entire life. And as I've been going around to all the schools, public and private, the one thing that keeps coming to mind for me is, why isn't there a charter school in Ojai? Like, why isn't there something that exists here that is free for everybody and that has things like nonviolent communication, possibly permaculture, sustainability, project-based learning, differentiation, where the students and teachers really have a relationship where the teacher knows what's going on with each kid in a way that just, I don't know, it's just, it makes me sad that Ojai doesn't have that when it's the perfect breeding ground for a beautiful, beautiful charter school to be able to like utilize everything about this valley. And what that man, Andy, was saying, I mean, I just wanted to jump up for joy when he was talking, because there are so many parents here that would support that. Wherever it is, if it's up at Summit, then yeah, I'll take my daughter up there every day. I live here, but if that school existed here, I would drive her up the hill for it. Absolutely. And I have friends who feel the same way, and they're moving out of Ojai into Oakview just so they could get their kid into the Ventura Charter School. I own a house here. I don't want to have to move to try to get my kid into the Ventura Charter School. So I'm just here to just say, this is what I feel as a parent of children here in Ojai, and I am here to support a charter school however I can. So I hope you guys think about that and know that there are many more of us here in town that feel the same way. Thank you.
Hey,
Hi, this is my first time here as well, and Stacy told me about the meeting. I formerly ran a community school. Part of it was a nature-based, visual media inspired, which is project-based learning. We also incorporate social emotional support and permaculture. And I really want to share how I would really do anything to support that kind of school here. I just didn't have the funding and support that I needed in order to make it happen, but I would really push. Because I feel like it's an incentive. Like, if you create a school that's cutting edge and democratic and doing things that children really need, I mean, their needs are not getting met. Like, the reason that they're having disciplinary issues is because they're not being heard. They're never taught how to actually be in relationships with each other, with themselves, and with the earth. And if they don't care about the earth, they're not going to care about what happens to it. And if they're not connected, and they're not growing their own food, I mean, small-scale urban farming is the future of food on this planet. And like, how much longer can we ignore it? I feel that this is a great opportunity for the community and those who are a part of Summit who want to make it happen. People will get excited about it. If you create this opportunity, this incentive for them to create something different, I mean, I can't tell you how many parents have come to me and asked me to recommend a school, and I cannot recommend a school that I feel wholeheartedly about in this community, and that's really sad for me. And people move here because they think, oh, I had these great schools, and then they don't know where to send their kids. And a lot of them do homeschooling, but if you created this kind of program, those families might actually jump over and be like, yes, this is exactly what I've been waiting for. And they agree. There'd be a lot of parent participation, a lot of community excitement. There's so much potential here for us to be on the cutting edge and showing people as a small community what's possible for the rest of the world. I mean, that's why when I came here, that's one of the reasons I knew I was coming, was to support permaculture, to support education and community building. It's a perfect opportunity. And I really feel excited about the possibility because there's so many limited spaces within Ojai to have schools and to create a school. And that was my other problem, is that I couldn't find a location. So this is an exciting example of like, okay, let's create this amazing school that people are jumping for because it's exactly what they've all been wanting and hoping for. I mean, they're paying like private school tuition to send their kids to school, but they're like, oh, it's okay. Like, I've had families from all different schools say, oh, it's okay, but like, I don't have a better option. So if we create a better option, it's so exciting. I'd love to be a part of it, and I just really encourage you to consider that.
Thank you.
I have.
Come on up. You
Sorry.
haven't spoken yet. Yes.
Can I go up now?
Yes. You have to fill out a white piece of paper so we have official record. I'm just kidding.
God
Tell
forbid
us
I
your name.
disobey the rules here.
What's your name?
My name is Valerie Levette, And my husband and I and our two girls moved here to Upper Ojai in '91, so we have been very long time residents.
And you have the best neighbors ever.
And we have the best neighbors ever, right across the creek, yes, Holder. So I just wanted to say, you know, both of my girls, who are in their 20s and 30s now, went to Summit School, and that was when there were about, I think, 140, maybe 160 students in the school. And I very much want to express my support and appreciation for the public school, for this public school in Ojai. You know, this was at a time when Mr. Schofield, one of the teachers there, would, you know, teach guitar lessons over the noon hour for anyone who wanted to learn. They took hikes up Cesar Canyon. It was a wonderful experience. And as, you know, enrollment declined, you know, I realized that all of these problems emerged. You can't do as much when there are fewer students, and sometimes you have to let teachers go. And I don't, you know, I think Ojai has had wonderful public schools, and I don't want to be critical of that. And I think that there is a minimum at which you need students to have a really viable school. But I very much am in support of at least the possibility of a charter school, and getting, you know, focusing on a curriculum that would bring more, you know, students, attract students from Santa Paula or the Valley, as has been mentioned. And I think that should definitely be an option. And to just dismiss that possibility, I think, is really the wrong way to go. So, those are my thoughts.
Thank you.
Really quick. I would really encourage, if you do decide to do a charter school, really researching like the best practices for how to teach children, the best results, and putting them into practice. Actually, like project-based learning is how children learn best. They learn from each other, and hands-on, and all of these things. I mean, and also looking at why there is a decline and like what you can do about it and from it.
Mr. Royal, there's someone who has not yet spoken.
Oh, okay.
You'll get up there. I
No
see
problem.
you. You got you.
Hi, good evening. My name's Nancy Karen. I had a fast question because I'm married to a very practical man.
Where is he, by the way?
He's been eating the dinner I made for him before I came.
I need to use a split splitter. Will you tell him anything?
Yeah. He would be here asking, because this is the way I think, being married to him for so long. The school's not in particularly good shape. I don't think, because I do live across from it, and so it's looking a little long in the tooth because of this long, slow decline. And so I didn't know if any option would be a better option for money for maintaining the building, which is a different thing than money for improving the building. And so I'm not sure how that would play into it, and the actual physical plan of the building.
So, Ms. Hearn, Mr. Campbell has presented the board materials on the condition of the building, was actually inspected, and the cost to, you're right, those portables are on their way out. It is long in the tooth, and we have a study, it's been provided within our materials.
Okay, wonderful. And so those choices then would impact those four options then?
I think so.
Okay, very
Yes.
good. And then the other thing, since it's coming up so often, is it possible for you guys to have a meeting with those who are interested in a charter, those who are interested in Rock Tree Sky, for a sharing and having that as an open, as Andy was saying, as more of a larger picture kind of, is that a possibility at this stage?
We're doing it.
So that's what you think is right now, as opposed to more detailed curriculum?
Well, I think this is our fourth or fifth meeting, and we have had, we've been discussing those issues about a possibility of a shared use between the Rock Tree Sky and the charter, and whether or not the school district supported the charter, etc. And this is the biggest attendance and turnout that we've had.
What would be, because the charter wasn't one of those four choices?
I think that's probably going to change.
That's happy news.
Yes, have you spoken?
No.
White, and I'm a resident of Ojai. And I am a parent of an 8th grader at Michelaha and a 10th grader at an independent school in Ojai. And within 9 years, I'm giving the perspective of students who went to 3 different charter schools in Los Angeles. And I feel like there's a lack of what that experience is. And they went to a school where they could do dance instead of PE. They went to a school where they could go do speech and debate, make it to the national competitions. They had those opportunities to engage in meaningful project-based learning, to use, they didn't use textbooks in one of the schools because they were so engaged in the projects. They did projects in mathematics and dance and science and English. They collaborated in ways that they couldn't do at the local public schools. So what is out there is incredible, and there are a lot of models that I know the committee is looking at, and that you also, I encourage you to look at as well, to see the success of some of these schools. And just as a parent, you can ask me too, and I can definitely give you more details.
Since it's a lot of people's first time, I want to let you all know, we are an advisory board to the actual school board. So what we say is just advice. You all need to come and state your opinions again when the real head honchos are up here making the decision. So remember that, please. We're formulating a list and making recommendations to the school board.
Which is very abstract, so I just wanted to really go again.
Thanks for being here. It's now 7 o'clock. I know more people want to talk, but I kind of want to move this along. And so,
I had some motions that I wanted to make to the list.
I was going to make one too.
Okay. You're the chair. Go ahead.
Before you do that, make a motion to close the public hearing.
Right.
Excuse me, I think that some more people want to come to the meeting that might still want to talk. I'm just saying in the.
We are about to close the public comment section. I know a lot of people were raising their hands, and if we did close the public comment section, we were wanting to talk. We're okay?
Yeah.
So I'm going to move to close the public. You want to speak? Great.
And some more people are coming who are here, because of work.
Come on up.
Thank you. Didn't even the last minute here. My name's Chuck Crawford. I've been in the valley. I've raised 6 kids here in the valley. What we're experiencing and talking about is our valley, but I want to share with you that what happened here is also going on in Ventura County. Declining enrollment, the housing issues. And so as we talked about these different borders, it's an issue going on beyond us. And how we handle this. Ojai, working with Andy, I have been with the district 23 years. Other school districts are looking at how we handle getting through the tough times. And Mary Ann, very involved, Paul. Seeing Paul and his wife here reminds me of the time with Summit when the family came together and said, "Here's the money to go down the hill," and kept the school open. And I thank you for that effort, because the assets, and I really appreciate you, Trevor, keeping this on an open door basis. It's not us and them. I've been a part of this community. My kids are all grown up and gone. And having worked with Andy, it's not an us and them. We've had some very difficult times. And one of these things is it's an asset. And what are we going to do with this asset? And so Andy's plan about what's the vision, well, those are words, but we deal with it every single day on our teachable moments. And I was at Summit today because there's a water issue. I've come to you before and talked about water. I talked to the water piece today, and we have one share out of the 120 shares that are available. So out of those 2 parcels, there's 1 share, which Bob's already got the numbers. He's good at that stuff. What he can and can't do. Okay, but it's an asset, and everybody in this room is an asset. And what I've enjoyed is community coming together. And I appreciate you keeping this, that we're not tearing each other's heads off, because there's no need for that. Okay, so I've had experience with charter school. There was a problem in this valley that people didn't want to talk about, and it affected our youth, and we ended up with a dead child in this valley. I won't get into details, but I had a choice for a charter school. We do have one here. Ojai Valley, or Ojai has a charter school, Valley Oak Charter, and they now have the church over in Miramonte. But as a parent raising a child here, when the city says we don't have a problem, but we have a dead child because of a bigger problem, I pulled my son out of public school. So I hear the parents saying they want choices. Public school, my kids came back to public school. The charter school, there's issues, divisions of anything that we do. And that red light just ended my division there. So anyhow, I want to keep in mind that public school, charter school need to stay on the table. We do need to have that bigger vision. We have enough people here saying, let's look up, not down. And working with Andy and this board in this school district, I mean, not you guys. But there's only $100 pie. It's not $110. And so we have to figure out in that $100 what our priority is. And it has been students in this college. So I would encourage you to keep the options open, but understanding the resources are limited, and that was part of the decision here. But as we hear from parents, there's more resources, so let's do it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comments? Move to close the public comment section.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'm gonna move that we add the charter school to the list, charter/public school to the list of priority use lists that we previously formulated. All in favor?
Are we gonna do
Can I just
one at a
add-
time, or are we gonna talk and then come up with a formula?
Can I just ask if we can get into that?
Before we go on?
Yes. So before you put it out there. Sure. And that would be to also add that it needs to have OUSD board approval.
Excuse me.
Discussion on it? Yes.
Well, I think the law says that you just don't need their approval. And there's other ways to get a charter school besides OUSD. I don't think that's anybody's right to tell them what they can do when it
Appreciate
is
your
the law.
opinion.
Well, when it is the law, that you have the right to go to somebody else.
Right, and I think, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what you're saying is, we're making a recommendation for what to do with the school site.
Right.
And you're saying with OUSD board approval
Right.
at that site.
For
as
that,
opposed
for
to-
that proposal, be it charter, be it
Right.
open and public, be it a charter, as long as we
But
have.
that's
Not giving an opinion,
That's the
just
first place the school is gonna go. That's what they said tonight.
Right, no, of course.
So, I mean, I don't know why you would try to restrict what you're gonna say that they're gonna do.
Because I would want at least in my opinion on it, is that the board would have the best interest of the valley in mind.
Well, I think the board has not,
And
excuse me.
that with them being on board, then we would feel more confident that they were doing what's in the best interest of our kids.
Well, I don't think the board has done what has been in the best interest of Upper Ojai. They closed the school in 2 months' time. They didn't give anybody the opportunity to do anything before they did that.
You wanted to say something too?
Why don't we vote
Yeah.
in favor of that amendment, or
Yeah.
that, and
Sure.
Would you restate it so we can?
Why don't you make your motion, and then if it fails, I can.
Well, okay.
I'll withdraw my motion.
You had your motion, which was public option.
Right.
Or public school.
Just as it's
No,
been
it's the
voiced.
charter.
Right. With the addition of, with OUSD board approval.
Okay, so is there a second to,
A public/charter.
with OUSD board approval, is there a second to that? No. Okay, so so back to my original motion, which is add the public charter to our list of priority uses.
Second.
Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Abstain.
Abstentions?
I didn't, who's second?
All right, great, so now that is.
Real quick, sorry, we're both doing the vote, so
Passed
was it
unanimously.
9-1? It didn't pass
No.
unanimously.
No.
That's
No.
one. You abstained, and Cheryl was no.
Cheryl was a no?
Thank you.
Bob abstained.
My fault.
I also abstained.
Okay, let's do a show of hands. All in favor of that motion?
So, 6.
Okay, got it. All opposed? Sure. Abstentions?
Can you make a motion, Sharon?
Hold on one second, yeah, voted.
The reason why I oppose it, because I feel like we're sort of, not taking into consideration, I think a lot of the discussion that came out that was really wonderful, and trying to figure out a way to, include everybody's, visions, or whether that's giving Rocky Sky a few years of a lease, and then seeing if there's the need for a public school to come back, or if there's enough interest, like, hard interest in a charter school to maybe make that possible. I just feel like that's such a narrow, but maybe that's the way we have to do it. But
I think we would just
feel
look
like
at-
We're gonna make
figure
some
it
more
out.
recommendations.
Right, okay.
It's just to put on the list.
Okay.
Put it on to, do we want to revote with that in mind?
I'd like to, have a short soliloquy and then, make a motion.
Can you stand up, please?
No,
I'm just kidding.
Personally, this school district, the residents within the school district, have committed $50 million to a debt themselves in bonds in the last 2 bond meetings. I don't believe that we should ever dispose of school property. As Mark Twain said, it's the only thing they're not making any more of, which is land. We do acknowledge the water issue. I acknowledge the water issue, some people bringing that up again. So we do have some issues there. We have a huge amount of people that were burned out. It's gonna take time. If Mr. Bailey's school had been around when 45 years ago or 40 years ago when my son was younger, I would have put my son probably there. But I can't consider that. So here's what I have to consider. I have to consider the taxpayers and the bond holders primarily, and then the school. And I'm gonna make a suggestion or a motion that we take away the sudden insecurity, and that's not really my purpose. The purpose is that I think we need to have a little bit of certainty. So I'm gonna ask that we put a 1-year lease on certain, or maybe an 18-month certain, because we're not gonna have a school, or it's not planned to have a school, a public school there for the next year. And so that gives us 12 to 18 months of a breathing period. We give certain to have a tenant coming in, so the school doesn't have an idle or vacant school, it has a common source of money. We also get that broken window effect. If you don't understand that, what that is, with the first broken window, the rest of it deteriorates, so we have people there. I believe that the school can go ahead against the income, and if we have some improvements, I believe the school can give credit for the improvement that Mr. Bailey wants to put in immediately against the rents, because after all, this thing is a 108-year-old school. It's been paid for many, many times over, and if it doesn't become a public school, we're gonna return about $580,000 back into the general bond fund for the other schools for improvements. So I don't see why we're losing anything. So my recommendation is we do 1 year or 18 months.
Which one is it?
Well, 1 to 18 months. I'm not sure what the current term period is. We go 1 year after the current. And we don't have, because it's a month to month. Is that right, Dr. Campbell?
It's a license agreement that can be ended at any day with no notice. But the term of that license agreement does go through June 30th of this year.
Okay, so June 30th. So I would I would ask that we extend it 1 year past the June 30th year.
So the current priority use list says, that we developed at the last meeting, number 1 says Rock Tree Sky lease for 5 years with a specified requirement for shared community use. Bob's motion, what I'm hearing, is that he wants to modify number 1 so that it reads, a Rock Tree Sky lease for a period of 1 year with a specified requirement for a shared community use. It's either 1 year or 18 months.
Well, 1 year past the June.
Okay.
There's an agreement through June. So, you know, it's really 13, 14 months is what it is.
Ojai added as another option.
Yeah. Is it?
You could add it as another option, that's fine. And if we community, I recommend we retain the school and extend the agreement 1 year past the June date with no other strings attached as to charter, Rock Tree Sky, no mention to anything, just retaining assets for the school is my primary function.
I was hoping that we could be more specific and rather than just give the school board 5 or 6 different options, say, you know what, we listened to the community, here's what we are recommending, and not, I think giving them an option of either 1 year, 1 year and 6 months, or 5 years is too many options. I mean, let's give them
So do we have a second?
recommendations.
Do we have a second on that? 1 year, retain the property.
I'll second that.
What I'm hoping we can address before we vote on this is, are we adding this as a number which would now be 6? Or is this gonna be a modification to number 1?
No, I'm gonna add it as a separate motion because we
Okay.
have the community, which I think is viable. Rock Tree Sky is viable. My intent is to get some certainty, get some income, not put this thing up for sale, and keep it where it is and give this thing 12, 14 months to play out.
Then why do you want number 1 on the list?
Well, that's not mine. I make the name new. I'm not modifying an existing.
All right.
But you can do
I got
that.
you.
But in discussion of that,
You can ask for a modification.
Mr. Bailey has definitely said that that is not something that will work well within what he wants to do, so.
Again, my first priority is to the $50 million worth
I'm
of
just
bond
saying.
money, the property tax.
But I think
and
Mr.
for the
Bailey
school.
might have changed his mind. Because now he's saying that he's gonna work with, he might look at willing to work
Yeah,
with
I don't know.
the charter school. Did you say that?
Yeah, we're not-
Don't know.
Hold on, Tim.
Okay, good, thank you. No, that's quite all right.
You have a second?
We have
Your
to have a
second.
vote. We have a
Yeah,
second.
I agree.
Hold on, we're gonna,
Let's make our decision based on, do you think we should use it for 1 year?
Retain the property and lease it for a year.
all right,
That's
so
it.
we have a motion, it's been seconded. The motion is to add 6 options to our priority use list, which is that Rock Tree Sky enter into a lease for a period of 1 year
Extension past
from
June for 1 year.
from the date June 30th, 2019, so it would be until June 30th, 2020, with a specified requirement for shared community use. Correct?
It's, the school, you can put that in there, and my understanding, schools by nature are always shared community use. So that's a given, but if we need to put that in, and you're comfortable with modifying that, then fine. If the shared community use is important, which I think it is, to the community, because that's the only building you have, and that's a public building up there, then I would go ahead and say, add that with shared community use.
I just think that's a bad idea. If I'm on the school board, I'm gonna go, which is it? 1 or 5? What does he want?
I don't want 5, I want
You wanna vote on
a
it?
chance to recover.
Yeah, all right, it's
I've
been
got a
seconded. Who seconded it?
I second it.
You did?
Yeah.
For a vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Raise your hand.
Aye.
I mean, on the same note, I'm happy to strike. Yeah, I'm
Number
in
one,
favor of the
amending
list.
number
Yeah,
1.
I mean, we can amend this
Well,
one.
we took a vote, we have 6 votes.
We good?
You have, you
Who was the
vote, you have
sixth?
6 votes.
Raise your hand
The
again.
The motion passes.
Can I make a motion to strike 1?
No, yeah, we gotta fix this. We got the votes. Those are 4s against. Against.
Okay, so motion passes.
Is there any abstentions? No? We got it? All right, the next issue is, you wanted to make a motion to,
Yeah, to strike number 1 for no one.
which is, we're gonna strike the 5-year lease.
Sky lease for 5 years with specified requirements.
If you're gonna do that, you might as well do 2.
Yeah.
All right, second.
Well, how about 3?
Is there a second? All in favor, this is 1 and 2 are gone from our priority list use.
And can I just ask a question? So people are concerned that, I mean, I would be in favor of keeping 1 and 2 because I'm okay with either. But it sounds like you're.
5 years locks.
5 years.
No, I know, and I'm okay with either, but I guess what I'm hearing from Trevor is that you are hoping this group comes up with something really distinct for the board.
Yeah, single option.
Okay. And I'm not in favor of that, I'm in favor of giving them anything that I'm okay with or that I feel like we're okay with as a group, and after listening to everything that everybody has said. So when I don't vote for striking these, that's just my explanation of why.
I think that's fair.
Okay, so the motion passed 6-2.
That was the last one.
This is
That was the addition of.
Okay, now we've got a motion and a second to eliminate 1, 2, 3, or 1 and 2?
Just 1 and 2.
No. Okay, call for the vote.
All right, vote. All in favor?
Aye.
To strike them? Raise your
And I'm in favor.
Motion passes 6.
Do you have everybody's name?
Who voted against it? Can you? No abstentions, 6-4.
So I'd like to make some comment here if I can.
Yeah.
So at the last meeting, I was not in favor of 3 and 4 on the list, primarily because I believe it means we have to sell the property. And so not that I'm not in favor of it being a community resource, and that's a great idea potentially for the future, but I am not in favor of selling it right now. I do think it is an asset. And what I'm hearing from the community is they want a chance to see if the numbers grow, right? They want a chance to see if Santa Paula grows to the point where I'm not in favor of stealing kids from Santa Paula, but if there's overflow and they want to come to our school, if that's a potential down the road. The truth is, from my point of view, it's a huge unknown. When I was in Simi Valley working out there 15 years ago now, there were lots and lots of housing structures going up, and they were expecting the district to grow drastically, and it did not. Older families moved into the houses, they didn't have young children, and since that time, they've actually had to close several of their schools. So my point in that is we just don't know. If those housing structures bring in young families and there are young kids, that could change the landscape of what we see to potentially support a school in Upper Ojai. So I'm not in favor of a charter school. We could go into that all day long, but my concern is if we're listening really well to the community right now, that they want to see if this school could be viable in the future. That's where I say, I'm concerned that maybe we shouldn't keep 3 and 4 on the list for the time being. Again, in 5 years, if we still don't have growth, there's still not children up there. For me, it was the fact that there weren't enough children to make that a viable school with bridge programs. But if there is going to be that in 5 years, we can reconsider. If we sell the property today, we won't know, we won't have that.
Will you put that in form of a motion?
I move that we strike 3
Can
and
we
4.
discuss that before you move it? I think the idea behind this community center was that the idea that was spoken by, was it Mr. William tonight, and that is that the Upper Ojai needs and it does have a natural gathering place, and that is the summer school. It serves so many different purposes. And when we were in the middle of that fire, we heard so many different times that we're all sitting there like we are now, that this is the way Upper Ojai used to be. So the idea was, I talked to Mr. Bailey and Jessica and a lot about this, was how do we use this resource, this community resource, to really bring people together and create this sense of community that once existed and could exist if we all put our collective heads together. And so I was hoping that we could somehow use this resource as a school, as a community center, as a gathering place, as a place for filling like whatever you can possibly imagine that's going to bring people together. And so that's why I wanted to have a community resource center on our list, whether it's nonprofit owned, county owned, community owned, I don't know, but it seems to me that there's no other gathering place in Upper Ojai. you need something.
There's nothing I don't agree with what you said, except you did include school on the list. And I think that selling it, if we end up selling it, would eliminate the possibility of.
Yeah, I think that, you know, we did have the guy from the county, he came out, so they just, you know, showed some interest.
Right.
But we haven't had any nonprofits at all that showed any interest in this, and it would be losing that resource for good, and I don't think anybody really wants that.
And Dr. Beatty, if we don't resource it, outsource it, we don't, you know, put it on the block, we don't put those things, we don't allow it to be sold, and we do have 1 year. We have a year, we have 14-month spell that gives people time for community to gather, to figure out what they wanna do. It gives them time to.
The board will be able to look at that and take their decisions on that.
Take a look at the Oakview Community Center, where that was sold, so it
But if
takes
you're
time
Jim
to
Bailey,
monitor.
you're gonna be like, well, why would I invest my hard-earned time and money into developing this spot into a community resource when it could be yanked out from under me in June?
And I agree with you, I believe I'm really here for the bondholders and the taxpayers, not
You're here for
for
these people.
not for outside opportunities.
Right, this is public property.
I agree.
And it should be a public space.
Thank
And I
you.
think it's
So let's
already,
create it.
as Summit School has been used over the years, it's been used as a community center, public space.
It's underused and.
Well,
have you seen
underused, but it could have
It's-
been used more, but under the school, it still can be used for a community center.
Yeah,
Right,
Dr.
but you
Bailey
have-
said he would work within
You
that.
have to create
But
an
it doesn't have anything
incentive.
to do with Bailey doing it. I think it comes from the community.
Right.
Because it's public property.
So
It doesn't belong to anybody. I mean, it belongs to the people that pay the taxes.
You're darn right, but what incentive are you gonna, and how are you gonna incentivize?
I don't care to give an incentive to anybody that's not public.
Then the weeds just grow and you
No,
sit there and
that's
watch
not
it
true
grow.
either. That's not true either.
Well, why is Jim Bailey out there on Saturday?
Because
Why do you think-
he doesn't have any other site, and he hasn't had any other site. And I think he does a good job, but I think that it's still public property, and that should be the primary.
So are we ready to make a vote on your motion?
Yeah,
Three
we
and
have a
four?
vote and a second.
I'll second it. Okay.
Either way, it doesn't matter. To remove, so you want to
Three and
restate.
four,
and four.
I'm not in favor of selling it.
Please restate your motion.
Yeah, maybe I move that we
Somebody.
remove 3 and 4.
I seconded it, but it was, you, go ahead and say it one more time.
Sorry. Or the friends of charge. Remove
For
3
clarity.
and 4 from the list. Required.
I seconded it.
Good motion.
All in favor?
All right.
So now we all-
Chairman, you want
I'm gonna.
nays and abstentions?
Nays and abstentions.
So, nay, and abstentions on that motion? None, so it passes. Jessica and I were voted against it. Let's carry down the list so everyone knows what, so. I think there's, is there one or two? There should be two.
3 items.
Three. Number
Well, the one.
We lost 1, 2, 3, and 4.
I'm sorry, two. Well, we added. Sorry.
Motion passed.
No, we have it.
No. Discovery put the charter school on
So
there.
there's these two.
So everybody charged.
Yeah, we have Bob.
Okay, then we got two.
So it's two.
So
Charter school,
I
I have
have
no
a-
particular order. The list now consists of two charter school and a 1-year lease beginning
Retained again.
June 2019, ending June 2020 to Rock Tree Sky. And the requirement for, specified requirement for shared community use.
So I'd like to make a motion that we add, a 4-year lease to Rock Tree Sky and with a 2-year reevaluation for the public school option.
How does that, so does that come in 6 years from now?
No, I mean,
4 years for Rock.
4-year Rock Tree Sky right now, no, after 2 years, there would be a reevaluation of whether there is a need for the public.
Okay, okay, wait a minute now. Okay, so we're gonna go 4 years on Rock Tree Sky and a
Right.
2-year evaluation. Is it a 2-year evaluation Where's the 2 year, does that come in?
In the middle, after, from the beginning.
And so then wouldn't that really be a 2-year lease with an evaluation of 2 years?
No, they would just reevaluate, we would just be reevaluating the variables that were, so recommending that the board reevaluate the variables instead of reevaluating it at the very end.
No, I'm okay with that, and if they evaluated 2 years that this isn't the way we wanna go, then, you know, it's.
Then Jim would have a couple years to say, okay, now I've got my school kids, where am I gonna go? Instead of just saying bye.
Yeah, because my concern with just the 1-year lease is that I feel like we're just kicking it down the road again, and we're gonna be back here in a year. And I think and then also with all the improvements that Rock Tree Sky would invest in, then after a year.
And I said that they get concession
Right, okay, so
for,
then I think that has to be
for the
right.
improvements, I said, I made it clear, I thought, that they get concession for the improvements off the cost of the lease. So he's not investing money that he just loses, because they do want to do some improvements.
There's no certainty for the future, which is a hard business model.
Certainty is tough.
Yeah.
But there's
So-
a difference in the business model and the taxpayers.
No, I understand where you're coming from.
And the taxpayers have no obligation for any business model.
We understand.
they had a month notice.
So-
Where you're coming from.
Yeah, and my thing is I wanna make sure we retain it. If we lease it for longer, we're fine. I just don't want us to get rid of the property. In 4 years from now, we find out we could have 200 kids because Santa Paula has gone nuts.
Well, that's where the 2-year reevaluation, in
So
the
I
middle,
wanna
they
close
reevaluate it after 2 years.
that door forever, which is the problem.
But if we reevaluate it after 2 years and we find that happens, or all of this stuff happens, then we can say, well.
Do you have a second? A second?
Recall that when we spoke with Mr. Bailey about whether or not it was viable to have a charter school coexist with Rock Tree Sky, he specifically said no.
But I thought he changed that opinion.
I don't.
More buildings, properties.
But it would just be another option. This is just another to the list. We've already.
I'm just hoping that we can give the school board some certainty.
Oh, let them figure it out. Because we're giving them a list and they're the ones that make that
Jim, do
decision.
you have a second on that? Okay, you want to go ahead and restate that?
That we give Rock Tree Sky a 4-year lease with a mixed community rider, community use rider. And then, in the middle, after 2 years, the board reevaluate the public school option.
So we have a second, all in favor? All in, yeah. Anybody get some? No, all in favor?
Motion passes.
Okay. Nays? Abstentions?
Here's one extension.
All right. So now we have 3 items on our list.
3 items on our list.
And it's 7:30. Is there any other uses that we can add to this list?
Can you just read the list
You're assessing my number. Charter schools?
Is this the order they're in?
No.
In no particular
No
order.
order.
It's a charter school. It's a 1-year lease to Rock Tree Sky beginning June 2019 with a specified requirement for shared community use. It's
In credit for improvements.
whatever that means.
Which what they'll allow you to put in the deed, yes.
And it's a 4-year lease to Rock Tree Sky. With reevaluation in the middle of the lease, we're at a 2-year period. See whether or not a public school is viable and with a shared community use required.
And reimbursement.
And reimbursement. I think those are the 3.
Do we want to specify that we do not recommend the property be sold?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, make that number 4.
Yeah, I move that we
All in favor?
I second.
Hold on, who was the second?
She moved, I seconded. Unanimous with the property.
You can say we all intend simultaneously to not sell the property.
Doesn't matter if asked, it's better if it wasn't done.
Okay.
Do we need to prioritize?
Does the public school, does that have that mixed community use rider as well, the charter school? My concern is striking the community resource centers, that we're taking that option away and say the charter school doesn't come together and Jim Bailey decides he's moving to Montana. And here we are, I'm sorry, I mean, big sky country, whatever it is, but here we are in the same position, and my whole goal is to preserve what I saw growing up there. I want to be able to have the built-in barbecue, and I'm looking at my back row there because they're all the ladies I grew up with, their kids back there, barbecues, built-in barbecue, and that was where we went, and it was the circle, and I don't want that option to be taken away from this community. And so I know that that was the whole reason that the Community Resource Center was put on the table in the first place, in my opinion.
So how do we safeguard what kind of targets?
I want to
we pick?
protect that, so I want to find a
You know how
way
you
to
safeguard
protect
that?
that.
We're gonna have an option for a brand new designated school district with a designated board person, not at large, and we're gonna have an election. And the other thing.
Oh, wait.
How many
wait.
Well, you said
But I was
2
talking
years,
about
you
resource
said
centers.
2 years from now. And the school has been good about resource center. I mean, Rotary, we've used the school many, many times. We have joint use. When Dr. Cantwell got here, there was a loosening of the requirements. They were very stringent, use, insurance, and a bunch of things. And the determination was made publicly that this is a community property and it should be used for the community property, and we should welcome communities. Doctor, am I saying anything on the line when I say that?
Absolutely correct.
And so there was a complete change of direction from, the hard-ass stuff that it was before in the restrictions and the requirements that excluded people. So when we had the wireless people for the 24 hours, I mean, they had to provide an insurance policy to be able to do a test to protect the community, and they dropped all of these really stringent requirements. And so I believe that if you want any community use now, the school board owns that property, they're in charge, and they set the rules. Is that correct?
What safeguards are you thinking about?
I don't know. I'm just putting my concern because that is a very large
I'm
concern.
thinking about dinner now, you keep mentioning barbecue.
Well, barbecue's on my mind,
I know,
because you know I'm in
but I agree.
the
I
planning
think-
process there, but.
You know, maybe when we are making our recommendation to the school board, that we emphasize how important it is, number one, not to sell the property, and number two, to maintain the property as a public resource available to the public, as a community asset.
Because that's gonna go on every item on the list.
Has
Because that's what-
anybody had denied access in the 20-plus years I'm here? I haven't recalled a single
No,
denied
that we haven't been in this position.
And we're not
In
leasing
40,
it to a
60,
private
108
company.
years.
Was there-
We're, you know, it's a different landscape than it ever has been. And, you know, I know that the concern of selling the property, in my mind, when that was ever brought up, it was only to benefit the community, not to a private, but that's off the board.
I think that whenever we're making our recommendation to the school board, we have to make it clear and apparent that the Upper Ojai community and the committee, I think we're all unanimously behind this, want to use that as a public resource.
Whatever you're gonna do with it, make sure that these community
Public
things stay
Expects,
intact.
expects
So-
access.
so like a
to the
foregone
community.
conclusion.
Expect that.
I have lots of concerns about the charter schools, which I won't mention in detail, but one of the pieces that occurs to me as you continually want to make sure that it's, you know, used for communities, I do think you're gonna lose some of that control. When you have elected board officials who represent you and are helping these partnerships, like you're explaining, we do have open schools, we do share with the community when they wanna come and use a classroom or use a facility. And if you have a charter school who has a board that is not elected by the community, you know, with a great board, you know, things will go well, but we just have less ability to partner with them in that.
Dr. Knox, I share your exact same concerns with Mr. Bailey as well, and I've talked to him about that.
Yeah.
He has a board that runs his nonprofit.
Right.
His board goes haywire on him and says, I don't want anyone in Upper Ojai on the school property. We have the same exact problem.
Don't we add a mixed community use rider to our public charter, or public charter school that we've already
Yeah, and, you know,
said?
I think we
can we take a straw
condition.
poll to try and prioritize these since everyone's here and, we can, pare this
Well,
down?
are we gonna do that though? We're gonna add a community use rider to the public school?
To the charter school?
Yeah,
I
to
think
the
it's
charter.
very important.
Yeah, I would second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Any nays to that? Any abstentions? So it's just Dr. Knox.
Good question.
All right.
Pretty much anything can be conditioned regardless of who takes the property. Charter school, independent school, private individual, the school can condition access, correct, with every contract and every lease?
Yes.
Okay, so that's a non-starter. The school, the school would recommend that they condition, because they can do that
Well,
with
the
every
school
lease.
board's not gonna support a charter, they're gonna have to go to the
Well,
county.
I'm not talking about charter, I'm just talking about.
Trevor, don't underestimate.
Condition
You
access.
didn't think we'd be here tonight, did you?
I didn't say that. Let's prioritize.
Do we have to prioritize?
No.
Well, I'd like to, because then we can make recommendations to the school board and kind of.
Or can we blanket, these are all of our recommendations?
If you're on the school board, don't you want to, if you're there, you're gonna say, well,
More guidance from us?
Yeah.
Sure, I mean, I don't know if I'm.
I mean,
You guys wanna do that?
go ahead. You go ahead.
What?
It's only three.
I'm not a politician.
Even they can juggle three.
All right, if you don't, if y'all.
No, it's
don't
four
wanna-
items, isn't it?
One year, 4-year charter school with the public access, 3.
And
No,
not
not,
sell.
not surplus the
Well,
property, I
okay,
should.
I mean-
No, say surplus, not to sell.
Make don't
Surplusing
sell.
and selling are two very different things.
I don't think that not to sell is an item. I
Yeah,
think
it's
it's
just
a, like a blanket statement that precedes the rest of our recommendations.
Are we gonna, it says develop a priority use list.
Oh, if it says priority, okay.
You don't have to do everything.
To be clear, the list itself does not have to be in priority order. You're welcome to do that, but it says a priority list, it's just saying a grouping of priority types of uses, but
Okay, 740.
it's not saying it has to be in order.
Yes, on the 22nd.
Okay.
And what will we do in that next meeting?
So you actually don't need to hold another meeting if you feel that this is the final product. The thing that you still need to discuss, though, is whether or not you are going to allow for committee members to attach their own individual statement to this recommendation.
In what form was the recommendation made? Some type of written report, or we go and talk to the school board? How does that work?
So the board meeting, presumably this comes to them, would be on June 6th. The meeting starts at 5:30. We'll have a time certain for this item at 6. The first agenda item is honoring our retirees and the students who will be there, so we'll do that first. There will be cake for you and for them. So at 6. So it'd be an actual, formal statement with these 4 items. Plus, again, if you guys decide that you'd like to have your personal statements attached, you may. That's something that you guys should decide tonight, though. And then, again, anyone who'd like to, presumably chair, if you're available, we'd like you to be the one to actually share the collective wisdom of this group. Anyone else is welcome to participate.
Is there anyone that wants to attach, let's call that from their own personal statement?
Absolutely.
Bob?
It's optional, right?
It sounds like it, but I mean, we should know in advance if you're gonna do it, I think, so we can, would you like?
Sure.
Anyone else?
I'm gonna, yeah, sure, I'll attach something.
Then why don't we just make this allowed by committee members, just attach their own.
So if you can have that to me by, we'll call it the Tuesday after Memorial Day, I believe it's May 28th. That will be the week that we're assembling the agenda, so that way the whole report can go to the board for the agenda for that June 6th meeting.
Right.
I'm gonna double check that May 27th, sorry.
So the report is just gonna be
I don't know.
the list and whatever right people opinions?
That's right.
Let's figure this out. do you guys want to meet in 2 weeks, or can we wind up now and be done?
Is there anything left open that requires another meeting? I know. I make a motion that we close this discussion before we go to the board. I think those that see fit, go ahead and capture their own statement.
We need to know the format of this report. So, is it a written report signed by all the board members, or what is this that we're making for the board?
It's gonna be the 4 things that you guys just voted on, or I'm sorry, go back now. What do you have? 3 things that you've voted on.
Not sell is the
Well,
last one. Not
exactly. That's what it's going to be a listing of 3 things with 2 statements that you have taken formal action on. Do not sell, and in all cases, we desire to be available to the community, a public space, public use.
Thank you.
What he just said.
Okay, and so then I think we'll make a motion to close the meeting. Close the committee. Close the committee. Good job, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.